Hi, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Pursue the Hunt Live. I'm super excited today to have a very special guest with us, Jordan Walsh. He is the host of the Riflemen on Sportsman Channel, and it's a sister show to the Best of the West. And we're going to be talking about things regarding his recent trips to New Zealand and Africa, logistics, some of the cultural experiences, some of the learning experience. So I'm super excited. So welcome here, Jordan. Thanks for joining in today.
Mike, I just want to thank you guys for having me. I love doing stuff like this. It's the reason why I even got into hunting TV, just to, talk hunting with some like-minded individuals and hopefully get some new guys into hunting. I mean, get out there, try it. Really, that's why I do the show. That's what the Rifleman's all about. Out there having a good time with your friends and your family and just taking in what the great outdoors have to offer.
So just give us a brief overview of the Rifleman. It's a new show. How many guys are you working with, and kind of what's the features of the show?
Well, I guess with respects to hosts, it's just myself. Growing up, I was always a believer that hunting was a group thing. I go hunting, like I said, to have fun with my friends, my family, and create memories that will last forever. Obviously, hopefully commemorated with a trophy on the wall, like some of the ones behind me, but not always the case. And, lots of times the trophy is the memories out in the field. So the Rifleman, I'm always out there with a group of people, be it my friends, my uncle, my cousins, my father, my grandpa. And then, like you said there, being a sister show to Best of the West and Huskama Optics and working with those guys and helping them as much as I can up here in Canada with some distribution. We do really try to focus on the long range shooting and, how to practice that ethically, some shooting tips. And obviously, everybody loves to see kill shots in hunting shows. Let's just call it what it is. You're not going to catch an episode of The Rifleman without at least 1 or 2 or 3 kill shots. So
Right. So it's not just always, so it's different people on the show depending on the episode and things like that too. So that's really cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. So let's get into the nuts and bolts here of your New Zealand hunt. I know you were in New Zealand, I think, was it last year?
That's right. Yeah, last early June, and then we were going to go back this year, but COVID-19 kind of sewered that.
Yeah, right. And so, what were you hunting in New Zealand?
So last year, myself and a good friend of mine, somebody I consider a mentor, Derek with Stone Performance Academy, came over with me. He was in pursuit of free-range red stag. The big trophy estate stags weren't something that appealed to him. So we got it done on his true free-range stag. And one of the things I found really cool about that, and I know we're going to get into the culture and whatnot later on, but he actually shot his red stag on the area that they had first introduced the red stag to the southern island of New Zealand. And one of the characteristics of those originally introduced red stags is that they were missing their baytine, which is the second point on their antler. And Derek's stag was actually, 100 years ago from that family, as it was missing that second point on its left side antler. So that was really cool. And for myself, I'm a firm believer, everybody that comes with me will get, them their game first, and I'll kind of go after. And once he had harvested his stag, then I decided I wanted to do bull tahr. And usually if you're going to do a bull tahr hunt in New Zealand, it's on the helicopter. We left the helicopters at home, and we did it the old-fashioned way on the boots. And I got to tell you, for me, I've really never hunted sheep over here in North America, but this tahr hunt was a good introduction to that in the sense that those mountains are every bit as steep and it's every bit the same. But there's one really big added luxury in that as long as you want to, you can come down off that mountain every single day and return to your 5-star lodge, which, you guys being BC boys know that that's not always the case. Sometimes you're sleeping under a tarp, and anybody who knows me knows I'm a little bit of a pretty boy. So I'm trying to build myself up to get to that sheep hunter level, and hopefully this year we'll give it a try. We'll see. But I'm the first to admit that the tahr hunt was a good introduction and something that, hey, I underestimated. Tahr was never on my list. But when Jim from New Zealand Safaris, Jim Gibson, reached out to me, he said, "Hey, mate, why don't you come on down here and blast the bull tahr? Unbelievable hunt." I'm like, okay, fine, I'll come. Don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah.
And I got to say, I always wanted to shoot the red stag. I got one over there with Jim in 2017, about a 400 incher, beautiful, beautiful animal. But the bull tahr hunt shatters the stag hunt. It's above and beyond more challenging, and I look back on it a lot more than I do my stag hunt.
So what would you consider the toughest physical aspect of the tahr hunt?
Those mountains are a a lot steeper than the Rockies. They're not as, they're not as high, they're not as tall, but they're just steeper. So you really got to pay attention and mind what you're doing, make sure you don't slip up. And obviously just no different than any other mountain climb, going up is never easy, but more so just, I guess, the mental aspect of it, which I think, sheep hunters would relate to too. Get out there, especially on a sheep hunt, 4, 5, 6 days, you got to have that mental mindset. And that was for me. I realized I was out of shape, truthfully. And ever since last June, I got home, and Derek, like I said, a mentor of mine, he owns a performance academy for mental performance and physical peak performance. And he was kicking my ass over there. I'll just call it what it was. And I got back, realized that, hey, I'm 25 years old and I am out of shape. So since then, it's just been, workouts, running. Actually, that's why I was a little bit late for this. I was just out, down here in Cochrane, Alberta right now. I was just out running some hills. And that was probably the hardest aspect for me, truly, was my mental mindset wasn't in check. And flat out, I was just out of shape.
Well, and that's in any hunting situation, nature doesn't wait for you to keep up.
That's right.
And like last year when I was and my brother-in-law Travis, we were on our mountain goat hunt, same thing. We were, we kind of physically prepared for it and stuff too, but until you're out there, you
don't realize it.
No. Did you spike camp at all out there, or was it just up and down every day?
We did actually. The one night we decided, hey, we're going to spike camp it out. It didn't end up working, mind you. And then every other day we hiked up, hiked down, which in hindsight, I'm like, geez, maybe we would have been better off to stay up there. Mm-hmm. But one of the nice parts about, New Zealand is the permissions that Jim has, it's all free range on Tahr. There's no fence to Tahr, but he's got, so it's one of those things where you're always checking different spots before you really shoot up. So that was kind of the way that they do it, right? We'd drive around, we'd scout around, we'd walk up, half a hill, and we'd scout the next ones over the next ridge. And it's that old hunting saying, we always want to know what's over the next ridge. Well, eventually you kind of just got to decide, okay, that's my bull. Because literally over there, he had so much permission that we could have wasted a month just looking. And
right.
Tahr horns are, a 13-inch Tahr is a giant. And a 14 is like, they might get one every 3 years. And a 15, I think he's got one all the time. So you're splitting that much, right? It's kind of like a goat, I guess. But,
yeah.
Eventually you're just like, okay, that guy's obviously mature. He's got a monster cape on him. And the one that I decided to shoot actually only had one horn. He had busted the other one off.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. But he was about a 13.5-inch horn with just a monster cape. He looked like a lion standing up there.
Yeah.
And that just signifies a mature bull. And in my eyes, that's the trophy, right? So I don't, hey, he had one horn, whatever. He's the most mature bull. And I kind of think that that's cool. Obviously, he's a warrior. So at the end of the day, we decided, hey, we're going to shoot up there and we're going to hammer him. Right. And it sounds easy now, but, we were just fortunate to get it done.
Yeah. So let's talk about, you're talking about your 5-star lodge there. What are some of the unique cultural things that you experienced in New Zealand versus, hunting back here in North America?
I would say, honestly, that hunting in New Zealand is pretty similar to hunting in North America. It's very westernized down there. You land in New Zealand and you tour around, and it's a lot like North America. If you were in a place like, well, I guess like Cochrane or Banff or Canmore, it's a lot more picturesque, I guess. And everywhere you look when we're out hunting, I always found myself looking at my cameraman, or woman in that case, I guess, being like, film that, film that, film that. But literally, like, you could just film everywhere you look in New Zealand, and it looks like a scene out of Lord of the Rings. And funny enough, some of the places that we hunted on, they had filmed Lord of the Rings. But kind of to loop back to your question, because I'm kind of getting off track here, but with respects to culture, honestly, it's really close to the same. Really, it's close to the same. They're a lot more laid back. We'll get there, mate. Don't worry about it. Just, let's just have a good time. And which really relates to me, right? I don't like to be all uptight, run and gun hole. Take it easy, and you're always going to get the job done. And I guess that really correlated well with that hunting style over there. It's very much mountain hunting, and very much the most important part of it is that you have a good time. But with respects to true culture in New Zealand, over here in Canada, substitute hockey with rugby, and you've basically got the same place.
So is there, and before we move on to the Africa hunt, was there anything that you found tough about, like logistics, like travel, getting there, importing? I don't know, you probably brought your own rifle. Yeah. Things like that. Like any sort of things you might want to say to the audience if they're planning on travel to New Zealand about specific things you should have set up?
Yeah, it's funny. We were just talking about this the other day, me and a buddy of mine. And I've been fortunate enough, I've done a lot of abroad hunts, and I've been lucky enough that I haven't ran into any issues yet.
Mm-hmm.
The paperwork it can be, tedious, but at the end of the day, you just do it. You get all your stuff done. It takes a couple of days. You get all your permits. You go to, we flew Air New Zealand, which is through Air Canada, to New Zealand. I think it's about $300. You got to pay them, and they give you all the paperwork at check-in. You got to show up 3 hours before with your rifle, and
Mm-hmm.
for the most part, they don't deal with it a lot, right? Be it Air Canada, Air New Zealand, any airline, they don't deal with rifles a lot, so it is slow, but they're usually pretty good, and the security is usually pretty good. Like I said, I've been lucky, but with respects to once you get there, you get your rifle, and in New Zealand, you go right to the police, and they check it, make sure everything's legit, and then they actually issue you permits saying you can have that gun in the country of New Zealand. And when you come back, they have everything that you had in there, right down to the number of rounds, one bolt, one rifle, one scope, whatever the case might be, anything to do with that rifle. And they go through their checklist and make sure you have everything so you don't leave anything behind. But we didn't have any issue. Yeah, we didn't have any issues the first time. And the second time, it was a lot more difficult because it was only a few weeks after that Christchurch shooting. So that
Okay.
was where it was kind of dicey. I actually debated not taking my rifle. We did, and it was fine in hindsight. But now it's going to be a lot more strict. They have implemented some new laws, but you can still, as of now, take your rifle over there. So.
Okay. Now, did you find when you got there and then you got to your outfitter, when you checked, did anything get knocked off, or does it travel pretty well, or did you have to resight in your scope and stuff?
Again, I've been pretty lucky. It's always traveled really well. We use some, be it a Pelican case or an SKB case, some really heavy
Mm-hmm.
duty cases that we have all cut out in foam and which you're going to want to use, because let's be honest, those airlines don't care. They're chucking it on the jet.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I recommend, if I didn't have the TV show, obviously sponsorship obligations, and don't get me wrong, I love shooting my Huskema. I wouldn't trade, like I would never ever not want to have it, especially I've almost grown dependent on it. But have to, I would just say leave your gun at home and go and shoot your guides, your outfitters, because their gun is going to be on 100%. That's their livelihood. Like, if they were a mechanic, that's their wrench. If they were a house builder, that's their hammer, right? So they're not going to have a gun that's off or not going to get the job done. If you can leave your gun at home, you're comfortable with that, leave it there, because like I said, the airlines don't respect it. I've just been very lucky enough to have no issues as of yet.
Okay. Nice. Okay, so let's go on to the African hunt. So, what time of the year did you head off to Africa?
So we were there this time last year, actually. Actually, I think I shot my lion yesterday last year. So yeah, that's right. So about we're into spring, so they're into the fall.
Yeah.
But it's still plus 30, high 30 temperatures. So we flew over there. We connected through Frankfurt, had a 14-hour layover in Frankfurt, and then went down to Johannesburg. We got picked up there. Had an option to fly, but we decided to drive just for the sake of footage. 7 hours out to the Kalahari Desert. And I got to say, down there, the culture's a little bit different. We'll get into that, but it's still pretty westernized. I'm not going to lie. Anybody who's scared or frightened to go to South Africa, and they look it up, and yeah, Johannesburg is the per capita murder, place of the world. It leads the whole world per capita murders, but no different than Edmonton or Calgary or Vancouver. If you go looking for trouble, you'll find it. But if you're smart and you just stay where you need to be, like we went to a mall over there and it looked like West Edmonton Mall. So
Okay.
yeah.
So what did you all hunt in Africa then?
We did a number of plains game. There was myself and my uncle, actually, who back on my previous show, Rawhide, he hunted a lot more with me. He still hunts quite a bit with me on Riflemen, and was fortunate enough to join me in Africa. We did a lot of plains game: kudu, gemsbuck, zebra, impala, warthog, sable. What else? I'm missing a few, and then obviously we did some dangerous game too, and he didn't, but I shot a male lion, which was always kind of on my dream hunt list. Never in a million years I think I'd be able to do it, but I was fortunate enough to get that done with Yoppie and Horns Africa Safaris there last year, and not the biggest main, not an MGM lion by any means, kind of a phase 1, maybe phase 2. They kind of I'm not going to say score, but they classify lions in phases of their mane. So if they get to their shoulder, they're a phase 1. If they get past their shoulder, they're a phase 2. And mine was about halfway past his shoulder. And then a phase 3 is, I think it's about 4 inches past the shoulder. And then an MGM is like Simba, like you're shooting Mufasa or Simba. He just looks, ridiculously perfect. And for me, I kind of wanted to get that, phase 1, phase 2 that I got, because if you go and you shoot a truly wild lion, they're not going to have much of a mane at all. They rip it out. They don't look like Mufasa or Simba.
Right.
So if you're shooting a lion in South Africa, it's not wild. It's on a fence. So the Kalahari Desert is 34,000 acres, and we had to track my lion just over 20 clicks and plus 38 to get him. But we got it done, and it was great. Just a different experience, and something that was pretty cool. I mean, you're following 2 male lions, and one time they turned back at us, and thankfully they didn't charge, or we'd had to shoot the other one. But for me, like I said, I wanted to get that phase 1, phase 2, because it looks the most legit, and a lot of guys will do that, and let's be honest, it's cheaper too. But
right,
yeah, that's kind of Cole's notes into that, and what went into my decision there, and yeah.
So the trophy fees are based on like the phase of the lion, then?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
So they basically start out at like 17 to 20, and they climb up to like 30 to 35,000. Wow. They used to be. But before Cecil, you probably wouldn't have touched any lion for under 38. But with Cecil, the lion hunting's gone down, and everybody says, oh, it's bad. And, truthfully, it is bad for the lions. You look at Africa right now. South Africa is on a lockdown, 35-day lockdown. And nobody's hunting. Nobody's obviously going there to travel. Nobody's paying the concessions to conserve these animals. Nobody's out protecting these animals. And rhinos are just getting hammered right now. Poachers are coming in and they're cleaning house. And as unfortunate as it is, it does go to show, hey, look, these trophy fees from these hunts really, really do help. And I'll loop it back to the lion. The lion's down right now. But then you look at the leopard. 6-7 years ago, you probably could have shot a leopard for 20. Now leopards are up to 40. So it always kind of fluctuates. It's like a stock market, right? People aren't shooting lions, they're shooting leopards. People are still going over there hunting cats. They're just differentiating from which one it is.
Yeah, for sure. No, and as far as cultural experience, why don't you touch a little base on that?
So African culture, and I grew up with one of my best friends actually from South Africa. His dad moved over here. He was a doctor, and I grew up with him for my entire life. So I was already pretty familiar with it. In Cole Notes version, they have, and I'll just give this as a tidbit to anybody who wants to go over there. Bolton is a form of meat that they make over there, and it is to die for. If you're ever hunting in Africa, you have to try Bolton. Rather than that, it's weird because, you'll drive, like I said, through Johannesburg in one spot, and you look out your window and you'll be like, gee, I feel like I'm in Los Angeles or Las Vegas. And then you'll drive 20 minutes out of town and you'll look around and you'll see what you'd see on like Nat Geo, where it's, mud huts and little shacks that are maybe 500 square feet all around. And, 3, 4, 5 people will live in one of those huts. However, every one of those huts, everybody in there is going to have an iPhone, and there's probably a 60-inch plasma screen TV inside there. And the craziest part is, like, you literally have better service there than you do in Saskatchewan. I kid you not. Anywhere you go, middle of the desert, middle of nowhere, you have full bar service. And the reason being is those companies, like their TELUS, which is Vodafone, and then one other one I can't remember the name of, they'll set up just one tower to accommodate 1 or 2 of these little villages because there's so many people there that they're making so much money. So everywhere you go, you're literally connecting to a tower regardless where you are in the country of South Africa. But to tie back now to their culture, it's interesting. And the hunting culture, I'll just speak to more probably than the true African culture, but it's weird in the sense that we'd go out and we'd hunt. So like, let's use a lion, for example. We shoot the lion, we take all our pictures, we do our interview for the show, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, let's go. And you just walk away from your lion. You don't touch it. You don't do anything. And they drop a pin, and the skinners come get it. They load it up. They drive it back to camp, and they skin it again. You don't see your lion again until it comes back to North America. So that, for a guy who usually, I'll shoot and then I'll skin and gut and handle it all before I even consider moving on, that was almost kind of weird. It almost felt really weird doing that. But, I did ask. I said, hey, Yoppie, the PH over there, can I skin my own animal? He says, you can. It's your animal. You do whatever you want. Just know that I pay my skinners per animal, and you're literally taking money out of these people's pocket, and they don't make much. And all of a sudden, you're like, done. Can't even ask twice.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that's that is part of that cultural experience for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as travel, was there anything different traveling there as far as logistics go?
It was a little more, I would say, a little more technical than New Zealand, actually. And the reason being is I'm really good friends with Rob Dunham, who's probably been to Africa 30 times, books tons of foreign hunts, one of the bigger hunt booking guys in Canada, maybe even North America, truthfully, with Magnum Reloaded TV. Great guy. But what I'm trying to say is he's been to Africa probably 30 times, and he says, once out of every three, the cops are going to make you bribe them to get your gun. So the way to avoid that, and he's learned this, obviously, is you have an option when you go over there. You got to still fill out the same paperwork. You got to fill out your export permit out of Canada, your import permit back into Canada, your import permit into South Africa, your export permit into South Africa. And I think there was one form we had to fill out. Yeah, there was, to get it actually through Europe. So when you get there, you can either bank on, having a 33% chance to bribe the cop with $100 US to get your gun, or you can hire what they call an usher, and there's an actual service over there. Literally, as soon as you walk off the plane, and we did it, it was about 150 US. There's a guy in a suit waiting for you with a sign that says your name. For me, it was Jordan and Brad, my uncle. You go with him. He walks you right through everything. He gets you your bags. He goes to the cops, and they just give him your gun. No questions asked. So we did that, and I would recommend anybody going to South Africa or any African hunt, look into that. Another thing is to really do your research on the airlines. Yeah, Delta won't fly your trophies home. There's hit and miss on rifles. British Airways, I don't even think they'll fly rifles, but they definitely won't fly your airway or your trophies home. We went with Air Canada over to Europe, which is no problem. And then we went with Lufthansa from Frankfurt. We went with Lufthansa from Frankfurt down to Johannesburg, and Johannesburg back to Frankfurt. And Lufthansa was exceptional. But when we got to Frankfurt, we went and asked if our rifles made it. They were like, yep, they're here, sir. They're all great. They'll be on your next flight, blah, 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 blah. And it was fantastic. And then the only weird thing, I guess, is London. If you can avoid London, do it. We avoided it on the way there. Coming back, and we knew this, but we didn't really have a choice, just on the dates we wanted to fly. When you go through London, they're kind of a pain in the ass with rifles and hunting. So we were actually all on the plane, and they came on the plane, and they got myself, my uncle, and 4 other guys off. And everybody with a rifle or a bow had to actually walk down on the tarmac and verify that that was their gun and bow, or whatever the case may be. Even bows. There was 2 bows down there. And then they put them last on the plane. So it's kind of a pain, but at the end of the day, then, the bows and the rifles, which usually come off last, came off first when we got back to Calgary. So it was nice. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to wait for your luggage as much.
Yeah. But the biggest thing is, and I can't stress it enough wherever you're going. And I'm lucky because, like I was telling you, when it comes to computers, I am dumb as a post and stuff like that. So getting online and getting all the paperwork and whatnot, and I'm not that great at. But my uncle, who I've seemingly always kind of gone on these trips with, is really high speed at that stuff. So he always fills out our paperwork, and then I know I'm covered.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, that's awesome. Yeah, we've got a little bit of time left here. Why don't you cover a little bit about? I have an interesting question for you about running your own TV show.
You're gonna get honest answers.
Okay. Well, I've asked a few other hosts this too. Is like, how do you not let it become a job? Like, how do you keep the fun in it?
That's where you kind of cut out of me.
Oh, okay. Like, how do you not
let it become which story?
How do you not let it become just a job? Like, how do you keep the fun inside of running a show?
Oh, gee, that's CC. I'd have a long answer to that, but I'll try and keep it as cold notes as I can. Before I got into hunting, I was fortunate enough to work in hockey, and I ended up working in semi-pro hockey at the age of like 20. So we were traveling all around the U.S., and I was doing the radio announcing. I played hockey, and I got too many concussions I couldn't play anymore. I ended up being, for whatever reason, good at radio and sales. So I got my own broadcast, and I was doing the radio all around the States. Couldn't even drink, but it was awesome. And that turned hockey into work for me. I hated it. So I left it, and I came back home, and I actually called Wild TV, Helgi Amundsen at Wild TV, every day for 11 days straight. And I'm like, hey, I got paid for one passion. Why can't I get paid for the other? And on the 12th day, he interviewed me, and he called me on the next Monday and offered me, he was dumb enough to offer me a job. And I never looked back since. But I started just doing sales for the network. I didn't start with a show, and then I pitched the show, and then obviously you got to get your sponsors. This industry is all sponsorship ran. But the nice part about the hunting is the work and sponsorship and the sales and the promotion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, it's totally separate from the actual hunting. Yeah, you got to hunt with the camera guy, but at the end of the day, you do it for a year or two and it just becomes kind of, that's just hunting, right? You just kind of talk to the camera and it just works into your hunting routine.
Mm-hmm.
And it's still, you know, the sales and the business side of it is entirely separate from actually going out and hunting. So that's kind of how I've kind of done it. And I mean, other guys might have different answers, but that would be mine. However, I would say if I didn't.
We're having.
That's how it worked out.
Sorry, Jordan, I just lost you on your what you said there last.
Yeah, so I was just saying, you know, if you ask the other TV show hosts, they might have a different answer. And you know, if I would have done hunting before hockey, I probably would have, you know, I'd probably be able to separate those two. But fortunately for me, that's how it worked out. And the hunting is the fun and the sales and stuff is the job.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I appreciate you being on the show today, Jordan. And yeah, I hope everybody watching enjoyed this edition of Pursue the Hunt Live. And yeah, thanks for joining in, Jordan, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, thank you guys very much for having me. You all take care and stay healthy out there.
All right. We'll talk to you later. All right, awesome. Well, thanks for joining in for this other episode of Pursue the Hunt Live. And I hopefully enjoyed learning a little bit about the out of North America hunting, some logistics, cultural experiences. And thanks for watching.